Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. On today's video, well, I don't even know what to call this. Maybe it's going to be part of the Test and Try series. Unlike the other ones where I'm actually testing out a computer, this is a bit different. I know you can't really see it, but this box, which a friend of mine just came by and dropped off, is filled, as far as I'm aware, with cards and stuff, and obviously there's a motherboard here, so I guess we'll be testing out some of that stuff. The story about how I ended up with this looks like a symphonic TV that was in this box at one point. That friend of mine is cleaning out his storage unit, he's downsizing, and he needed to just get rid of some stuff. So he had this, and he knows that I like random parts like this, so he thought he'd drop it off for me to have and see what's in here and see what works, and he doesn't even remember exactly what's in here. So I'm gonna put this down on the ground, and I'm gonna use this desktop surface here for us to take a closer look at all these parts. And as I get stuff that might be worth testing, I'll set it aside and then we can try it out. So right off the bat, we have an Apple IIe motherboard. When you're looking at an Apple IIe motherboard, to know if it's an enhanced version or not, there's upgraded ROMs, but the other upgrade is the CPU has an upgrade to a 65C02, which this machine has. And I don't see MT RAM on here, so there's a good chance that this motherboard just simply works. It's just pretty dirty, needs a little bit of a clean. So we'll set that aside for further testing. Before I proceed any further, I have put on some gloves because recently I picked up something, I think it was like an old CRT board, and I got a puncture wound on my thumb by picking it up, and it gave me a little hole there, so that hurt. All right, next up is, what is this? This looks like a RAM card for potentially a 386 or some kind of PC, right? Has a weird slot in the middle here. Certain early boards, 286s and 386s, had proprietary RAM expansion, and that's what we have going on right here. Now looking at this card here, these appear to be 4 256 chips, meaning 2 of them is 256K, which is kind of cool because these chips are actually a little harder to find. So we have 256, 512, 768, and 1 megabyte. So that's 1 meg of RAM. This obviously can support up to 4 megabytes of RAM, and you notice these pin headers here. There would obviously be like a daughter card that would plug in and probably give you an extra 4 megs. There does appear to be some additional RAM right here, which I think these are MCM 511000 chips. I think these are 1 megabyte by 1. So that's 8 chips, that's 1 megabyte of RAM as well. So yeah, unless there's a motherboard that matches this in the box here, buried underneath, then this is probably gonna be a spare parts board where I harvest the RAM chips for use on other systems. Okay, next up is this. It's another ISA RAM card, 16-bit. No RAM is populated. There is a label right here. It says 80 data. We develop technology. Warranty void if removed. Nothing on the back. And like I said, no RAM is installed. Unless I can find the manual for this, these cards are notoriously difficult to configure because you have to set the base memory location, starting address, and size and stuff like that. I would assume a board like this would take probably 256K or 1 meg chips, probably selectable via the switches there. So you could either add 512K or you could add 2 megabytes. It could be that this only supports 512K of extra RAM, so you put this in like a 286 original IBM AT, and then you would end up with 640K, and then you'd have some extended memory, 384K of extended RAM. There's a good chance we won't be testing this on this video because without the manual, it's pretty much impossible. All right, there's a bunch of stuff in anti-static bags. Oh, hey, take a look at this. This is a Sigma Design DVD decoder card. So it's PCI designed for like Pentium era systems. And this handles the MPEG hardware decoding in hardware here. And taking a look at the back here, it's got VGA input on this DIN connector. Then it has VGA out, so your monitor is hooked up there. And then you have S-video, composite, and audio. Now, typically with these cards, I mean, I don't know about typically, but it would have a pin header here, and you would actually connect it also, well, you could connect it optionally to your VGA card internal connector, so you didn't need to use this pass-through stuff here. And then the audio would be connected to your sound card through one of these headers here. In fact, I think there's two here because your CD-ROM audio, or DVD-ROM that is, would go into here and then it would come out, go to your sound card, and this would mix the sound from your DVD drive with the MPEG decoded audio, like the AC3 audio, and send it to your sound card. These were necessary for back in the day. Machines were not fast enough, especially at like a 46 with PCI slots, of course. You could not do MPEG decoding, not MPEG 2, that's for sure. And even with Pentiums, it wasn't really possible either. Only later did this start to get integrated into the video cards, so you had hardware decoding, and then you didn't really need this anymore. Not to mention, of course, CPUs got faster. But that's kind of cool. We won't be testing that in this video because there's drivers and stuff you gotta get working, but I actually don't have one of these, so that's kind of cool. Okay, the next card is a video card, and it has a 3DFX logo on the back, so this is obviously a Voodoo card of some kind. And I'm gonna have to look it up, but it's AGP, so this of course would work in a Pentium or newer. I don't think AGP ever existed on 46s. It's got just normal VGA output on the back and, you know, RAM and this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, it's a 3D accelerator, a combination 2D and 3D accelerator. Okay, I just looked up the PCB number that was on the back of this card, and it's an STB 3DFX Voodoo 3 3016 megabytes. That's kind of cool. It's not super common. The listing that was on eBay that it matched said it had TV out. This one does not have that. I'm assuming there would be like an S-Video connector right here on the bottom. It's not populated, and you know, there's no hole there. So I'm gonna get a marker and I'm gonna write on there that this is a Voodoo 3 because I think I have potentially one other Voodoo 3, but I don't have any other Voodoo cards. That's kind of cool. So if I find cards like this that I figure out what they are, I'm just gonna write on the back here that this is a Voodoo 3. Okay, next card in an anti-static bag appears to be some kind of a network card. Do I recognize it? No, it's got a big giant green and red LED on the side there. We have AUI and coax. This particular card has some static RAM here and a chip with the C's. 92C901. Let's look that up. I have to keep taking my gloves off to use the phone, so maybe I should either get a computer over here so I can just type on the laptop, or, you know, I don't know, stop wearing the gloves. And unfortunately, it's not really returning any hits. The only thing that came up is a network card. It looks, well, not this exact card, a similar one. Someone's selling it on some website for $30, but it doesn't say what it is other than it says LAN card. We have barely scratched the surface. I'm gonna have to speed this up or this video is gonna go on long. Look, it's another card. It's identical to the one we just looked at. So yeah, two cards that I don't know what they are. Great. All right, next up, we have a Trident VGA card. This is, what chipset is this? TVGA 9001, I think it is. These cards are terrible. They work, they're VGA cards, they're fine, but they're slow as all heck. Avoid Trident cards at all costs. If you want a VGA card that's ISA, that has some actual performance, don't get this one. Even with that said though, I will test to make sure that this works. I have a bench PC set up over there. We'll get to that in a second. All right, we have another AGP video card. This one's from Elsa. On the back here, it says it's the Winner 2-A16. Okay, the Winner 2, 1999 is the date on this. A quick search reveals that the Winner 2 is an S3 Savage 4 Pro Plus. That is a pretty blah video card. This card is extremely unexciting, so I'm not gonna be testing this in this video. All right, next up, it looks like we have another video card. This time it is PCI. All right, there it is. All right, so this is intriguing. This is a Creative Labs video card with a TI P4020 GFN 3D video chip. Is this like actually a standalone video card, or is this actually a 3D accelerator of some kind? So some searching online reveals that this is actually, the chip must be made by TI, but it's actually a 3D Labs Per Media 2 3D accelerator We have 4 megabytes of SGRAM running at 83 megahertz, 64-bit data path, OpenGL, DirectDraw, Direct3D, and 3D Studio Max support, 640 by 480 all the way to 1600 by 1200, up to 150 hertz. It's sort of funny, we have high refresh rate LCD screens now. Back in the CRT days, we had high refresh rates. You know, this card alone, back from the 90s here, supports up to 150 hertz. So yeah, we were rocking those high speeds. This is actually an AnonTech review on this. It's called the Creative Labs Graphics Blaster Extreme. Ooh. And by extreme, it's extra extreme, EXXTREME. It's double X extreme. That's something like Gamers Nexus. How many X's do you need? I guess Creative Labs was ahead of their time with many, many X's. That's kind of hilarious. That's kind of interesting. I'll set that aside for testing. All right, next card. You know, I've had one of these on the channel, I'm pretty sure. It must have been sent in by a viewer. This is, if I recall, this is actually a sound card and a modem in one. And it's one of those modems with all that fancy features like voicemail, and you know, you could do a voice tree, phone tree, you call in, you know, press 1 for whatever, stuff like that. Rockwell chips, analog devices I see here, Aztec, I think it's an Aztec sound card. I know I have a few of these floating around. You know, it's a sound card, I'm not gonna test that on this video. It will take too long to get all the drivers working. Alrighty, next card. Looks like we have another network card here. Yeah, it's just a UMC ISA network card. Kind of run of the mill. It says it's yes, Novell compatible. It's got 10 base T and coax. This is probably NE2000 compatible. So from a driver perspective, it's pretty easy. There are jumpers though, which can be a bit confusing. Some NE2000s are configurable with software, but NE2000, like this is a Novell standard, was the successor to NE1000. And the NE1000 was Novell's way of making like a a network card that was pretty standard, and that way you didn't have to worry about buying one that was incompatible. If it was NE1000 compatible, you could stick it in and it would just work with Novell, and there were drivers for DOS and stuff. And the same with NE2000. It's very compatible, so that's kind of nice. But again, I won't be testing this on this video because network cards take drivers, and I don't have anything with NE2000 drivers handy. But it's always handy to have ISA cards because as I build up old computers, I like to have network access on them. So I can connect to file share. I have a file share for like retro file sharing. It's basically have all the permissions and the securities turned off. So I use that. So I use network cards with some DOS LANman drivers to mount the drives. This is actually an audio PCI card by Ensoniq, and this is before Creative Labs bought them. Yes, Creative Labs bought Ensoniq, so they made synthesizers. They made the sound chip in the Apple IIgs. They were pretty cool company when it came to sound stuff. They made these PC sound cards. I think these were like wavetable. You know, it's kind of boring by this point because, you know, by this point, you had Windows drivers and you could do emulation of wavetable with the CPU. Like we're getting to the point where you didn't need a sound chip to do all that fancy stuff. You could do it in the software. And that's, well, like basically by the time Creative Labs bought Ensoniq, there was nothing left of that company. And I mean, maybe people can talk about why this is a good card. The chip, by the way, is the Audio PCI ES1370 here. Pretty sure I have some of these floating around. These are very common. They're just not particularly great because they don't work well in DOS. There's like limited compatibility, and anyways, yeah, sound card. Okay, next up, we have another video card, and is this another 3DFX card? It may be, or it might be an Nvidia card. You can't tell. They don't print anything on it. It's a diamond card, I can tell that. It appears that this card is the Diamond Stealth 3 S540 AGP 32 megabyte VGA card. Yeah, you know what? I don't even know what does it have on it for a 3D processor? None of these things say. Therefore, whatever, that's pretty boring. I know there are probably viewers watching who are interested in that era of cards, but you know, I prefer ISA stuff and earlier. So the stuff that's like later, this is a modem, it's an ISA card. That's boring, we're moving on. Anyways, I was saying, yeah, there's people who are gonna be interested in that stuff. You know, there are some AGP cards that are pretty cool. like the 3DFX things like that, or you know, some of the early Nvidia cards like the TNT. But basically, when it's these like diamond stealth whatevers, that's just blah, so boring to me. Like, there are more interesting cards. That was definitely not one of them. We have a Creative Labs Vibra 16. So this is a Sound Blaster 16, basically. It's like getting very cost reduced. They've shrunk everything down onto this one IC. I think the biggest problem with these is there's some issues with the ad-lib emulation. Like, it's all integrated into this now. So the OPL 2 and 3, it just isn't that great. But these certainly work. They are fully Sound Blaster 16 compatible and Sound Blaster, you know, older compatible. It's not a bad card. I've used some of these before. This is the CT2260, which is interesting because I think that's like relatively old. Like, the higher the number on the CT, the newer it is. And this got jumpers on it, so maybe this thing doesn't have plug and play. I don't know. I'll set this aside just in case I can test it. I have a computer that boots up with Sound Blaster drivers, so maybe that'll work. Okay, next card. Oh, this is an interesting thing. What is this exactly? Okay, so yeah, this is an Adaptec SCSI card. This is the AAA131U2. And what makes this interesting is it appears to have SD RAM on it. Let's pop this card, this RAM card out of here. There we go. That was pretty stuck in there. So we have some kind of a memory module, although I don't really know what this is. If it's RAM, it doesn't seem to have a lot of chips on it. But yeah, Adaptec SCSI card. It's got the regular 8-bit SCSI, and then it has the newer 16-bit SCSI, and same on the back there. And it's a PCI, and it's got lots of ICs, and that's kind of cool. I'm assuming this is some kind of cache memory, if that's indeed what this is. It is really difficult to get this memory module in. There we go. There you go. There we go. It wants to pop out. I have a good number of SCSI cards. I have ISA ones and I have PCI ones. I even have like a PCI Express one or two. I was just testing out, actually it's sitting right here on the bench. Oh, it's connected up to a hard drive. I was just testing out this card. This is an Adaptec SCSI card combined with a sound card. So it's a full-on sound card and it's a SCSI card. And this was made by Adaptec, and I actually have it plugged into this hard drive here. And this is formatted for DOS. This card does work. I just was trying to get it booting the other day, not for a video or anything, just for fun. And I couldn't figure out how to make it boot. There's a lot of jumpers on here and there's some stuff to configure, so I don't think I had it right. But definitely the hard drive was being seen in DOS because I had the right drivers loaded. ASP, I don't remember. Anyways, yeah, so that's kind of funny that this is here and this more modern PCI one showed up. All right, it looks like I barely made a dent in this. I gotta speed up the process here, otherwise we'll never get through. Oh, look, it's another one of those cards with the 2 LEDs. We'll just put that in the pile. And we will grab the next card, which is just a Intel Ethernet card. These are very nice, they're very compatible. There are lots of DOS drivers and Windows drivers and everything for these Etherlink cards. It's an Intel 8/16 twisted pair LAN adapter. And as long as it's got the useful twisted pair or 10 base T connection on there, this makes it extremely useful for getting your old DOS computers online. And the fact that it says 8/16, it means that this card actually works in an XT. You can just hang that off the edge and it won't matter as long as it clears. And this card, I think, should work. Now, we seem to be getting a lot of PC cards here. I was hoping by the fact that this Apple IIe motherboard was in there that we'd have some interesting Apple II cards, but so far, nothing. All right, we have another DVD decoder. It's a Real Magic. Is that the same we had earlier? I think it might be. Yep, and here's the other one that we had earlier. So this one is the Real Magic DVD by Sigma Design, and this one is Sigma Design Real Magic as well. So the difference on this one is, well, it's got the same pass-through set up on the back of the card here. This one at least has a provision for that video card pass-through, and this one does not. Otherwise, these cards, they actually look almost identical. I am curious if I can populate this header here. I can just add one on there and then connect it up to a video card. And take a look at this. It's a VGA card I've been using recently on my test bench, and I even have the pass-through cable on here. I got this off something and I was like, I'll just leave this on here. So if I ever need to test something like these, well, I'll have this pass through. Well, not these, just this one with the possibility of it, not that one. I don't have this custom DIN cable breakout thing unless it's in this box. So these are gonna be harder to test, unfortunately. All right, we gotta keep moving here. So we have another SCSI card. This is not an Adaptec. This is some kind of a no-name brand that I'm unfamiliar with, EEVBlog. Terminating resistors, it's all there. Notice all these missing ICs. That's because this thing supports it can be a floppy controller. It's not populated. It can also have a BIOS, so you can have like that, thing when you turn the computer on, it shows you what drives you have. That's not there either. So this is like a bare bones card. You need some kind of DOS drivers for this to do anything. And yeah, not much else to say about that. All right, next up is an AGP video card. And this is, yeah, it's AGP. This is a number 9 card. Number 9, that was a company that made kind of fancy-ish video cards. This one's probably boring as all heck though. Says here that it's a 16 megabyte SDRAM AGP4X ATX analog. Ooh, not much to report there. Yeah, just another AGP card. Okay, another card, and it's an S3 Trio 3D AGP VGA card. Extremely snooze worthy. All right, next up, another AGP video card. This time we have a 3D image, or 3D image, I think it was, made by Trident. Super snooze fest, very underperforming AGP card. If you have one of these, these are like bundled inside computers. No one was rushing out to buy these. You were trying to get yourself a Voodoo card or an Nvidia card. Those were the great cards. This, not so great. Okay, next card, another Etherlink 816. We've already had one of these, so yeah, that's cool. These are great cards. All right, next up, we have another Trident PCI video card. These are just terrible. Just like the ISA card, I mean, these aren't terrible. They're fine, they work. They don't have 3D accelerator. The chip on here is a TGUI 9680. It's a graphics accelerator for Windows. It can accelerate like 2D stuff, moving a window around, stuff like that. It's pretty boring. Not much to say about these whatsoever. If you're using this in DOS, it's probably fine. PCI is fast enough that you're gonna get good frames per second. It's not like the ISA bus where there's a huge variance from one ISA card to another. All right, next up, looks like we have a couple video cards, SCSI cards, or one or two, I can't tell. Oh no, it's a one card and a disc. Okay, I really need to just edit this video down and cut out the talking while I unbox stuff. This is a SCSI card made by Advancis, and it's obviously PCI. It's got a BIOS on there, which means that it will, have something, the message that prints at power up, and it comes with a couple driver discs. How nice. This disc here comes with drivers for DOS, Windows 95, and NT, and this one here is IUX, NetWare, OS2, Linux, Solaris, SCO, and Unixware. The date on here is 1996, and this is an Ultra SCSI card. Yay. Ah, okay, we have another video card. This one is actually kind of interesting. This is a Riva 128. So yes, Nvidia. This is one of their early cards. I don't know what the earliest card is. From 1997, there is 3D acceleration on this. This is before, no, is the Riva actually the same as the TNT? Let me go look that up. I think the Riva 128 is the original TNT, which was supposed to be the competitor to the 3DFX Voodoo cards. Okay, actually Wikipedia says, released in August 97, the Riva 128, or the NV3, was one of the first consumer graphics processor units to integrate 3D acceleration to traditional 2D and video acceleration. Its name is an acronym for Real-Time Interactive Video and Animation Accelerator. Released 25 years ago. And this has also composite out and S-Video built in. That's pretty sweet. And PCI, which means you could use this on a 486. Not sure that's really the right thing to do. According to Wikipedia, there was an NV1 and it came out in 95 and it was sold as the Diamond Edge 3D. This particular graphics accelerator here has 3.5 million transistors built on a 350 nanometer fab process and it's clocked at 100 megahertz. It has a single pixel pipeline capable of 1 pixel per clock when sampling one texture. And it also mentions that this chip was limited to a 16-bit high-color pixel format while performing 3D acceleration and a 16-bit Z buffer. So yes, this card is a direct competitor to the 3DFX Voodoo card, which really, at the time, was one of the best 3D accelerators there was for the PC, in the consumer market, of course. And then this was Nvidia's entry into really combating and fighting 3DFX. In the end, of course, we know that I think Nvidia bought 3DFX and the whole Voodoo line just went away, but early on there was a real fight between these two companies, and these cards were pretty amazing. Now this card says 1997 on it, and at the time, you have to think that 3D acceleration was really relegated to things like silicon graphics machines. So putting one of these in your PC or a Voodoo card made an incredibly capable machine when it came to 3D graphics. And if you watch Shelby over at Tech Tangents on his channel, he recently picked up a couple Hydro Thunder arcade cabinets, and it's a game he absolutely loves. And it's fascinating to me because the computer that runs those things is just a PC booting, I don't know, it doesn't seem like DOS, I guess like a custom OS or whatever, and it has a 3DFX Voodoo card in it. That is the 3D engine on that game that does like 640 by 480 or whatever, some kind of resolution like that, in this really nice, smooth, texture mapped 3D animation. So I mean, it was by that point that even arcade cabinets were starting to come with just commodity PC hardware due to cards just like this. So this is pretty cool. I don't have an Nvidia card as old as this. Okay, digging into the box, looks like we got some motherboards now. Okay, we have a 386SX board here. It's an AMD part. It's running at 33 megahertz. These are notorious for leakage, though this one, wow, minimal amount of leakage, if anything. So that's pretty cool. I'll be cutting that battery off, but I guess we can give this a test if I have time. I mean, there's too much to test. This pile over here, it's getting really big. Okay, next up, we have a socket 7 motherboard. This is maybe an Intel board. I mean, it's got an Intel chipset, the PCI set on here, or yep, socket 7. It's got the old cache slot. Was that Coast cache on slot or something like that? Oh, actually, I don't think this is an Intel board. We have the old Dallas here. Notice it's got a connector here. I mean, is this for power? This must be for power. You must have to plug it in over here, and that gives power to the CPU, voltage regulator, stuff like that. I notice on this motherboard, it's got the horrible plastic clips on the SIM slots. None of them are broken, which is somehow an amazing miracle, but that is just total junk. This is not an Intel board. They would have never do something like that. There's some part number information on the bottom here if anyone notices that, and I do notice over here on the jumper block, it says clock with a K, K-L-O-C-K. Okay. Alrighty, another motherboard here. It's another socket 7, not too much, I don't know, nothing particularly interesting here. The difference is it has SDRAM slots here, and it has regular 72-pin, and they are metal, the clips here. This is an AT motherboard, but look, it's got an ATX and an AT connector. I've recently got some of these, like someone gave me some of these, and it's interesting. It has the soft power on if you're using the ATX connector, but if you use AT, obviously you don't have that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Who makes this motherboard? I'm not sure, but I do see the BIOS chip there says burn in. Yeah, burn in. It's like a burn out on your burn in. I don't see any other identifying marks on this motherboard to help me figure out what it is. So if you recognize it, put a comment down below. Alrighty, we got something in a box here. Let me zoom out the camera a little bit. Give a wider angle. I assume this is a motherboard. Oh, it's a real Magic card, but it's the whole kit. All right, I'll have to make a video about this. Look, 2 breakout cables. So that's cool because I needed one for those other ones. S-Video to composite or something. We have a bag. We have another real Magic card. So that means there's 3 of these now. We have 2 identical ones without the expansion header on them, and then 1 with the expansion header. So I'll put these together. And actually, it looks like we have all 3 breakout cables, because there's the other VGA breakout cable, plus the audio cable, and we got a manual. Looks like we have another manual. So obviously this was multiple things that were put together, accessory kit. Inside this accessory kit here is another audio cable. We've got a plastic bag. Look at these DVDs. Resistance is futile. Like, is that like a trademark from Star Trek? Cause that's, oh, wait, it is actually a movie. I didn't even notice that it was actually Star Trek First Contact. Okay. So yeah, the Borg are in effect in these movies, I guess. 2 copies of First Contact by Paramount. So this is obviously a pack-in DVD here, so you could test out your video playback. Got some more discs here. If you recognize the fact that, whoa, Hitachi DVD-ROM driver disc, it's probably got MSCDX on there. If you recognize that some of these discs aren't for some reason archived, please let me know and I can, you know, make a disc image or something. And it looks like this accessory kit has another copy of all the software and another copy of the movie as well. So yeah, the 3 cards have the actual manuals and stuff. That's cool. I was just, my assumption was those cards were just loose and I would never find these cables here, these pass-through cables for doing the testing. So that's cool. Alrighty, next up, some kind of a giant board. I'm assuming this is like from a phone system or maybe a Cisco router or something. Is this from like a catalyst switch maybe or something? The only thing that's interesting is this is for, is this a Nortel? It says Tektronix on here actually. So this is obviously from some kind of a tech scope. I wonder what this is. Is this a processor? Is this a Motorola like 68040 or possibly something like a 68060? Is that possible? No. Okay, so that is not some Motorola chip. That's an Analog Devices AM29000, which I think is like kind of a processor or CPLD or something like that. Call this RAM, lots of DRAM on here, more memory expansion, and then a whole bunch of ROM chips. So I'm assuming this was used in some kind of like a Tektronix scope or something like that. Tektronix being based here in Portland means that it's pretty common to run into this kind of stuff. And you know, old boards like this, I don't know what this would have even come out of. These typically get recycled and stuff like that, which is probably where my friend got this. Alrighty, the box is actually not that much stuff left in here. Looks like we have a copy of DOS 5.0 by IBM. Interesting. I don't have a whole lot of like boxed copies of DOS, but don't worry, I'm not looking for those either because this takes up a lot of space and you know, I have the disk images anyways. So I guess this is IBM DOS, which is just MS-DOS, but it's branded for IBM and for IBM compatible version 5.02, which if I recall has some of the bug fixes that are pretty much necessary to, you know, have a usable DOS. It fixed some pretty serious bugs that came out in the original DOS 5.0. It appears that this version comes with 3 720K disks. Big for DOS 5.0 is the DOS shell, sort of like a GUI in a way, made it supposed to be easier to use. So yeah, it's pretty fancy at the time, but this appears to have the manuals and stuff. Let's just open it up and take a look. Remember when things came with manuals? Look at this, look at this. Not just like a PDF file you're supposed to look at or whatever. And we have the discs, which I assume it's been opened, I guess, at some point. There they are. What's up with the fact that one of the labels is upside down? That is really junky. And they're like dot matrix printouts. They don't even look good quality. That's not very fancy, IBM. And we have a keyboard and code pages book. They're all stuck together. And license information. Ooh, that's exciting bedtime reading. And we have the Getting Started guide. All super exciting stuff to read. Okay, we're getting down to the bottom now. There's some packing material in there, which sort of took up a bunch of the space. I think we got processors. We got processors, everyone. They're just loose in here, so who knows what the condition of these are. Let's see, I got like a, they're all stuck together. All right, we have an AMD K62 350 megahertz. We have an Intel MMX Pentium chip. This is the SL27S, I think it is, 27S, which either 200 megahertz or 233, I think. 233 megahertz, I just looked it up. I like to write it on the bottom just so, because Intel doesn't. That way when I'm going to find that later, I can figure out what it is. Next up is a purple ceramic chip. This is the SY016, which I'm pretty sure is going to be, I think, 166 megahertz. So I just write 166 on the bottom here. Again, for my future self, so I can quickly identify what it is. Okay, this chip's a little bit interesting. This is an AMD 46DX, oh no, 36DX40, and it's on a little PCB. So it's a surface mount chip, but I think this is just a normal 3D6 pinout, and that's kind of cool. I like these kind of weird, unusual form factors like this. I mean, you could get this chip in a normal ceramic package. This was obviously just like a cost-reduced 3D6 version. Okay, we have another Pentium. This is also SL27S, so that's another 233, just like that one there. And then here we have an interesting Pentium. This is a purple ceramic, obviously. Well, it's sort of the grayer color of the two there. This is 120 megahertz. Bit unusual. It's an SY033. I think those 100 megahertz ones are just not like the most common. I know like 133s are incredibly common, but yeah, 120, not so much. Okay, next up, another Pentium. This is an SL27J, 200 megahertz, Pentium MMX. So similar to those. I wrote the speed on the bottom for future me. We have another AMD K62 350, so same speed as that one. We have an Intel 46DX33. And you know what, all of these, the pins seem okay. I mean, they were bent up a little bit, but nothing you can't straighten out. So we have a 46 there. All right, we have another Pentium MMX. This is another 200 megahertz one, just like this one over here. Another Intel Pentium. This one is SL24R, so 166 megahertz. So same speed as this one. No, this is 120. Same speed as this one, which is an SY016, but they're both 166. Obviously some kind of a stepping difference, something like that. All right, we have another Pentium here. There's another MMX part. This is 200 megahertz. It's the SY060. Seems like the 200 megahertz ones are incredibly common. Next up is an AMD. This is kind of a neat one for me, at least. It's a 5x86 P75. This is a normal 46 pinouts. This would go on a 46 board. Supposedly was supposed to compare to the 75 megahertz Pentium. I don't think that's the case. I'm not an expert on 46s. If you watch CPU Galaxy as an example, you get a lot more information on them than I can provide. But that's kind of an unusual part. It's not just their normal 486. No, that's not a 486. I think they sold 486s, I think. But this was their way of trying to compare to the Pentium with the 5x86. And we have a Pentium here with a bonded fan heatsink combo. Really annoying. So it's glued onto the package. And yes, that comes back on Google as 133 megahertz. And we had one CPU that's in an anti-static bag. It's not, it's actually in a sealed bag, sort of sealed. And it's an AMD K62. How fast? Another 350 megahertz. So 3 of those. But wait, there's more. We have another box here, which maybe contains more CPUs. Maybe it has RAM. Maybe it has a Sony, what is this? Looks like a card reader of some kind. It's the PC card parallel port adapter, model number SMAC-PR1. There it is. Comes with the drivers, comes with this kind of pass-through cable here. Looks like you could plug your printer into it and plug it into your computer at the same time. Fancy, fancy, fancy. And it looks like it has a cable here to take power off the keyboard port, PS2 and or 9-pin to run this thing, and a little bit of paperwork. All right, seems that we have loads and loads of manuals. HP, Windows NT Workstation for distribution with a PC only. We got Windows 98 here. We got Windows 95 here. We have another Windows 95 for distribution with IBM's. Introducing Windows 95 with a certificate of authenticity. And there doesn't appear to be any kind of CD in there, and it's still sealed. Windows 98, this does have, no, this doesn't have a CD either. So these are just books. That's boring. That's boring too. There's no CD there. That has a CD though, so that's good. Oh, that doesn't, this is also just a book. Oh, throw that over there. And NT, oh, this is a book too. Junk. I mean, I'm assuming these actually have the product key here, like for installing the OS. So there is that, but kind of boring because there's no CD. Oh, actually, no, Windows 98 CD. So at least one of those things I threw over there in anger has the appropriate CD. So I'll go fish out one of the product keys to pair up with this because it's not useful without the CD, right? All right, apparently there's the original packing material for the old symphonic TV that was in here. But buried off to the side is a Windows 98 CD, yes, distribution with a new PC. That might be to do a fresh setup. And someone stuck their certificate of authenticity in here. Microsoft Office, how exciting. This is Office Professional and Bookshelf for installation with a new PC only. Here's the last thing in the box that's actually interesting. It's a bunch of CPUs here, slot 1 it looks like. All right, first up is this slot 1 CPU here. It doesn't say if it's a Pentium 2 or 3. I'm assuming maybe it's a 3. It says here that it's a 500 megahertz, 512K cache, 100 frontside bus, 2 volts. Ah, there's the part number there. I know you can't see it. It's gonna be impossible to read on the camera anyway, so I'll read it upside down here. SL3CD. So anyone know what that is? Pentium 3. And we have another one here. This one is a Pentium 3. It says it right there. And this one is 450 megahertz. This is an SL37C. But wait, there's more. This one says Pentium 3, 650 megahertz with 256K of cache, 1.65 volts. You can kind of tell like what generation it is by the voltage. I'm reading off the top right here. It is written there. This is the SL3KV. Now, yes, in case you're watching and you're like, what are these? This is a slot 1 processor. Intel designed this so you could just stick it in the motherboard. Like you didn't have to worry about bending the pins. Like, you know, these have bent pins. Well, you just stick it in. It's easy peasy. It didn't last very long though. Socket 370 came after this and they basically moved, well, on this little PCB here is a regular what looks like a normal CPU, and they just moved that back on the motherboard. All right, and this box appears to just have tons and tons of memory. And some of it's interesting because it's like double height like that. In fact, there's a whole bunch of it. That's SD RAM right there. Looks like it's PC 100. That means, you know, some of these motherboards we saw will support that, but there's like a bunch of this tall stuff. There's some short stuff. There's more and more and more. Some 72-pin memory there, a bunch more SD RAM. You know what? This video wouldn't be complete with this memory without RAMmy. You know, I can't find RAMmy. RAMmy is not in the building. RAMmy, you know, that's funny. You moved RAMmy somewhere, and I'm surprised. RAMmy usually sits around. Like, I don't know where RAMmy is. Anyways, RAMMy's not here. RAMmy is here in spirit only. We have regular 30-pin memory, so there's a little bit of that. Let me just do a quick dig through this because there's nothing, I don't think there's going to be anything interesting in here. There's lots of this really big RAM. It's really hard to tell like what capacity this memory is anyways without doing, you know, further testing with the RAM tester that I have, and it will tell me exactly what stuff is. Oh, some kind of a laptop memory module. And a bunch more stuff. And another one of these laptop modules, but different. This one, yeah, I don't know. Oh, this could be for a video card actually too. It's got like a high density push-on connector. And a bunch more RAM. RAM. Unknown if this stuff is good or bad. It'll be, I will need to go through this. I mean, if anyone wants to see me go through this and put this stuff in the RAM tester, obviously I can't do this stuff, but the SD RAM, the 72-pin memory, and also the 30-pin memory, what I typically do is I'll take the RAM tester and I'll put it in, and then I'll just write, you know, if this is a, you know, 32 meg module, I'll just write 32 on one of the chips, because really it's hard to identify that typically. And then if it's bad, it just goes into the bad parts or the dead parts bin. But there is a lot of memory here, so it would be quite an involved process to go through all this on a video, and I don't know if anyone would really want to watch that happening. Maybe I do a live stream. Nah, that would be super boring. No one would want to see that. Anyways, lots more. Another plug-in module for a laptop. Another one looks different, or video card. Who knows? 30-pin memory. Here's one little laptop RAM module that is a normal whatever DIMM, something like that. Another one there, and here's another one. I don't know what this is for. If anyone recognizes it, definitely let me know in the comments. Let me know about testing this as well. What you think I should do. Some more 30-pin and that and that. There we go. Whoops, avalanche of RAM. Yeah, that's a lot of memory. So definitely let me know what you think I should do with this stuff. Alrighty, because this is a test and try, I need to at least test something. It's not gonna be this memory. I think it's gonna be, let me move the camera here. Yeah, there we go. Might be some of these cards here. I want to at least test out, okay, the real magic cards, I don't want to test right now. That would probably be an entire video. I would like to at least test out the Riva, make sure that this at least, does something. Not the Adaptec SCSI card, that's kind of boring. We can test the Vibra card. We can test this card. This is that 3D Labs, or no, what was it? It is Permedia 2 card. I already forgot the name of the company that makes this. We'll test this ISA card. That's super quick and easy. This is the Voodoo card. We're just, when I say test, I just want to make sure it actually, powers up. And we'll try this Apple IIe motherboard because I happen to have a Apple II power supply handy, so we could get that working. I won't be able to run diagnostics. Oh no, actually, it will run the diagnostics on its own when you don't have to keep it hooked up. Okay, anyways, we'll test this 36SX motherboard. We will not be testing this lot one motherboards or any of those other cards we went through. So, okay, let me go over to the bench and get this stuff hooked up. Yeah. Alrighty, I grabbed a random board that has AGP because I want to test those video cards, and this actually has a Pentium 3 on it at 500 megahertz, which happens to be the same as this one that's unlabeled here. I don't want to try the other ones because you got to change a bunch of jumpers, but at the minimum, I can just, CMOS error. That means I have to put a new battery in this motherboard. I guess I haven't used it much. I just recently got this. Someone gave it to me locally here in town. I'm actually not really a big fan of slot 1. I think it's, by this point, Pentium 2s and stuff, it's just not really interesting to me anymore. I much prefer Pentium, well, to be honest, the older stuff, and Pentium is about the most recent I like to use. Okay, so yeah, that battery's out, obviously. That Sony battery is probably totally dead. Let's just see what that registers on the old multimeter here. Incidentally, I did power this motherboard up a second ago just to make sure that it was working. And let's go to the BIOS. Yes, this battery registers at 0.04 volts. So that is a dead battery. Let's just accelerate the boot process here by turning off things that this thing doesn't have, like no floppy drives. Okay, let's see how this works. Originally, I was trying to use the my little XT IDE in my ISA slot. It was really going very slowly on this particular motherboard. It's an Asus, this motherboard. Yeah, Pentium 3, 256 megs. Starting MS-DOS. Yes, here it is. I'm using my, oh yeah, that boots a lot faster. This is what's going on here, compact flash adapter. Okay, so let's get this processor out of here. So as I was saying, how does this come out? I can't remember, to be honest. Are there little clips? Do you have to push this? I think you gotta push this. All right, yeah, so heatsink is integrated on. That came out pretty terribly, to be honest. Let's plug this one in. There it goes. Heatsink or fan plugs in the motherboard. So this is exact same specs as the one I just took out. Has a noisier fan though. Okay, there we go, it's posting. I'm just gonna put a little tick mark on this one to say that it works, and same with that one. All right, there we go. So this should boot. I'm using just a regular ISA video card, And cool, let's get started. Why don't we start with this Vibra 16 card here? Actually, no, I'll put in one of these other video cards so I can, this thing only has 2 ISA slots, so I'll take out my test bench card and we'll pop in, what are we gonna pop in? I don't know, let's start with this one. This is that Trident ISA video card. So this is kind of what I do normally here. When I get stuff like this, I'll obviously, I don't know if I'll test the rest of this stuff, but usually when I want to keep something, I'll just test it, make sure that it posts, and I'll do like a very quick test on it, and then I'll just draw a check mark on it just so I can know that it works. 512K on this Trident card. Whoa, that was slow as all slowness. So let's boot this up, and I'm gonna run speed 600. Let's take a look at how fast or slow. Oh, 1900 bytes per millisecond. That is very slow. The card I just took out is probably 3,000 or 4,000. Let's just see for comparison. I'm not really gonna run any further diagnostics. I just wanted to see if it does work. Let's put back in my original card. This is, who makes this? I don't know, it says prototype on here. Don't know who makes this card. But we'll pop this one in. Let's boot this up, see how much faster it is. Am I actually recording? Yes, I am. Okay, so we're gonna put a tick mark on there. Uh-oh, it's not working. This motherboard is very dusty, so it's quite possible that, you know, there's just dust in the slot, or it's quite possible that the motherboard broke. Let me grab my post card, and let's see if this thing is even posting, because it doesn't appear to be posting anymore. That's a postcard. You can get these very inexpensively, and I think Amazon has them. I'm gonna put it in the PCI slot because I've had problems with some of these later motherboards. Okay, it is posting. So, oh, maybe my video card is not connected. No, it is. Oh, you know what happened, everyone? I plugged in the wrong VGA cable. So there's a cable right here. That's going to my capture device. This is the one for the monitor. Sheesh. This is what happens when you have too much junk on your bench. All right, what was I trying to do? Oh yeah, I wanted to see if this Vibra card was working. Oh no, well first we were gonna check to see what the milliseconds or characters per millisecond was on that, but just that text drew a lot faster. All right, yeah, 3,500 bytes per millisecond, and that other card was like 1,900. That right there is a dramatic example of how, you know, same speed computer, 2 different cards. This Trident card here, while it works, is a terrible performer. So if you're trying to run DOS games like Doom on a 486 that's only got ISA slots or a 386, this card sucks. Just avoid that. It says this card is an Oak Tech, according to this. It's not the best at telling us what it is, but anyhow, okay, let's pop this test VGA card out, which I know works well. We'll stick it off to the side. Let's try this. This is the Voodoo 3, and it is AGP. I'm sure this works. I mean, this stuff, even though it was just stacked in a box, Voodoo 3 2000, actually that's what it says. I thought it was a 3000. Let's let this boot up properly. You know what, I should have put the sound card in there. This does have Sound Blaster drivers on here, so I'm assuming that card is gonna work. Yeah, there, it's trying to load that stuff. I just don't know about these jumpers here. I don't know what they do. All right, I'm gonna run vid test here, which is video test bench. I like this because it has SVGA utilities here. So we can do like 1024 by 768. Yeah, there it is, it works. Actually, it wasn't working very well. When I push 7, even though we're still seeing the text mode, it's actually not showing the graphics that it should. B, that works. But A works, that's graphics. Yeah, that's okay. Huh, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. That could be this program. Okay, let's check out the 800 by 600 mode. There it is. That's working well as well. So that's good. So the Super VGA modes are going to work. Obviously, there could be a problem with the 3D processor on there or whatever, but at least the text modes are working well. And there's an example of like 256 colors. So yeah, anyways, as a DOS perspective, this card works. Let's reboot. Let's take a look at the bytes per second on this card, AGP, versus, you know, this pathetic card. Obviously, you can't use AGP on a on a machine that's like old. It only works on newer stuff anyways, but that AGP bus I think runs, if that's the AGP2X, it's like 66 megahertz. So it's gonna be mighty fast, yeah. So it's getting 25,000 bytes per millisecond versus this card, which is getting 1900. So we have a massive performance increase, meaning if you run benchmarks that have to do with like pushing pixels into the frame buffer for like a game like Doom or something, this card's gonna perform way better. Although Doom is frame rate limited, but you know, if you're talking about Quake or something like that, AGP is the way to go. All right, this card appears to be working, so that's sweet. I'm just gonna mark on this that this appears to be a 2000, not a 3000. All right, let's check this out. This is that interesting card with the TI manufactured chip, and I forgot already who this was. Oh yeah, this is the Creative Labs Extreme XXXXX, like Video Blaster or whatever it is. So this obviously is a PCI card, so that can work in something like a 486 if you have a PCI bus. Hopefully this card works because it's kind of interesting. I think it's a kind of a unique video card. Maybe, maybe not. Hey, there it is, Creative Graphics Blaster Extreme. Oh, I like that splash screen. I want to see that again. I'm sorry this monitor is pretty dim. I really like these types of monitors. I tried to reboot and it didn't work. Ooh, did you see that animation even? I was trying to push pause and that didn't seem to do anything. Let's try to look at that one more time. Let me get the camera closer. Oh, it's such slow zoom. Look at that, look at that. Ooh. Nice, 3D Labs. That's who makes this thing. Let's reboot that one more time. Let's check out that awesomeness. Ooh, Creative Blaster Extreme with those double X's. Because you know, 2X is better than 1X. Adrian's Digital Basement 2, is that better than the first channel? I don't know, but this card does appear to be working. Let's go look at the speed. Oops, speed 600. Oh, wow. I think I have numlock turned on. How do I turn that off? Somehow, like, shift is stuck down. When I push the numbers, it's just typing. Just push those keys. There we go. Oh dear, everyone. Oh dear. That's not good. That's not good at all. Oh no, this card is no good. I tried running speed 600 and so this card is bad. I'm just power cycling it here. Oh, wow, what a bummer. I think it died. It has died. Yeah, look, it's not even posting anymore. Come on, why did you break on me? I thought it would have been kind of fun to do a video on this card. Let's just give this a little bend. I mean, this is a BGA chip. It's not really that warm. But maybe it's coming off the board, you know, maybe this RAM has gone bad. Who knows, right? Let's pop this back in and see if bending it a little bit brought it back to life. I am not holding out hope though. Well, I'm glad we got to all see that extreme graphics at power up together. Yeah, this card appears to have bit the bucket. I'm not gonna write it off until I put another card in this machine and make sure that it does post. But that card, you know what? I'm just gonna try, I know you can't really see it here. I'm gonna move this into a different slot. Maybe there's something wrong with that slot. I don't know if this motherboard works properly. Let's see if that helps the situation at all. I doubt it. Oh, hey. Oh, bad slot. Bad slot maybe. Yeah, okay. Extreme, we're back on the extreme bandwagon again. I'm extremely happy that this card is extremely working. Let's see, speed 600. Ooh, 25,000 bytes per millisecond, which is the same speed as this card, this AGP card. Well, I'm glad this card works and I didn't just like write it off. I guess that I'll avoid that PCI slot for now until I do more testing on this motherboard. But yeah, unknown motherboard, you don't want to just always assume your card is bad because you never know. Could be the motherboard. So this is the Riva 128, the first viable, good quality card from Nvidia here. Let's pop this in. I know this came in an AGP variant. We saw it in the pictures. Let's get that green light. Yes, there it is. Diamond Multimedia Viper 330. Had 4 megs of RAM, which is what we knew it had. Awesome. Font's a little bit different on this card. the VGA font. You know, the card, the ROM on the card is what defines that. Let's see, speed 600, 25,000 as well. So we're like at a bottleneck, I guess. I guess the HEP, well, you know, it's quite possible with this Voodoo 3 card that it doesn't really take advantage of the HEP slot. Sometimes they put PCI chips onto these AGP cards and you don't get extra bandwidth. I don't think you do, at least. And that might be the case with this. And that's why it's getting the exact same 25K per second, which I think is the theoretical limit, or K per second, 25K per millisecond theoretical limit of the PCI bus, potentially. But this card does appear to be working. Let's go to vid test and let's do a couple tests there quickly. SVGA, let's do text mode. Oh, that looks nice. Nice and crisp, very crisp. Let's do 256 colors here. There we go, looks really nice. And we'll do 800 by 600 crosshatch. Looks good, it's a little shifted on the monitor, but that's not a problem. And let's just try the one that wasn't working on the other card. That says 1024 crosshatch. Look at that, razor sharp. This monitor's native resolution is 1024 by 768. And yeah, we can look at some more colors and stuff. This card appears to be working properly. I mean, as far as we can tell, you know, obviously we need to do further testing with the proper drivers and stuff. That looks totally good. So cool. Riva 128, functional. Oh, I'll just leave it in there because let's test out this Vibra 16 here. Let's see if those drivers I have loaded can actually see and detect this card and have it work. I should zoom out a little bit so you can see better what I'm doing. We can plug in the speakers here. I gotta get a cable though. Yeah, 4 megs of RAM of SG RAM on there. Very fancy-fee. That's not even a word. What am I talking about here? I usually keep cables on my desk here to hook stuff up, like to the speakers. Let's see if I can make this all work. Oh, by the way, audio card's configured to A220 i5D1H5. Nice. Okay, speakers are hooked up. Make sure the volume is turned up. What are we gonna test with? What should we test with, everyone? All right, I run Cubic Player, so let's listen to a mod file. I have some mods on here. Let's see if this supports the high resolutions. Yeah, look at that. So that's basically using like one of the extended VESA modes to get more on the screen. Let's see what else I got. I mean, obviously it's working, right? We hear the sound, it sounds fine. Let's run the diagnose utility for the Sound Blaster just so we can test out the OPL and the digital and audio and whatever. All right, here we go.
8-bit testing.
That's working.
16-bit testing.
Obviously, we wouldn't have had the mods working if the 16-bit didn't work. And there's the ad-lib sound. OPL, that is. So, like I said, the OPL on the Vibra 16 may not be perfect, but it's still pretty good. It's fully compatible, so any ad-lib software, in fact, if we exit out of this, let's quit, because I'm pretty sure I have, let's see here, I think I have the jukebox on here. Jukebox, this is the ad-lib, like from 1991 jukebox software here. Well, it's, you know, came out earlier, I think. There's a later version. Let's listen to one of these here, Highways. 16-bit dance party. FM synthesis. Who remembers this thing though? The jukebox, seriously. Everyone, I mean, I played this a lot, and I had a bunch of other songs for it. Just stop that. Yeah, anyways. Okay, so cool. Vibra 16 card working. This video card working. Gets pretty warm, the video card that is. Diamond, whatever. 330, I think it was called. Awesome. Tick mark, that gets the tick mark of success, as does the Vibra 16. Let me just give it a little inspection to the Vibra. Anything wrong with this card? I don't see any leaking of the caps. All looks good. It's just a bit dirty, but it does look fine. So yeah, cool. Tick. Just for grins, I'm gonna try out this funky PCI SCSI card here. Just wanna see if it like shows up in the BIOS. Oh, gotta avoid that bad slot, potentially. We do need a video card. I will not go back to this junky Trident. I'll go back to the one I use for all my testing. This one right here. Let's just see if this SCSI card shows up in the BIOS screen, like, you know, after the post stuff is done. Out of range, weird. Maybe, yeah, there it is, F6. Yes, checking DRAM, 10-second wait. It's the AIC 789X sequencer diagnostic passed, 2 MB memory detected. You know, when we thought that was a regular SD RAM, could I just put one of those modules in that big box full of stuff? Yeah, these later cards are nice because they have these utilities here which let you set up the card, and this is all stored in an NVRAM on the card itself. So you can change the host ID, you can turn the BIOS off and on, I don't know, bootable CD-ROM, SCSI card configuration. Ooh, that's hard to read. Just talks about all the different SCSI IDs, and you can like set the max bandwidth, things like that. And then there's also a disk utility thing, which I don't think is gonna work because there's no SCSI disk connected. It's gonna scan the bus. What this will let us do is format the hard drives. So I guess that's an Array 1000 family. Does that card have like built-in RAID 0? Or like something like that? I don't know, it's kind of interesting. So yeah, you pick a device if there was one on here. You'd be able to like format the disk, test it, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of cool. The older cards, like the one I was trying to use, those ISA cards, that weird sound card combo, doesn't really have that kind of capability. In other words, it doesn't have the that whole ability to like have that whole menu and stuff. So you got to do jumper configs. It's not nearly as sophisticated. So cool though, this card does appear to work. I do, like I said, I have a couple other SCSI cards that are PCI, and I have some other ISA ones as well. So I have a good number of these. But I don't have any that are like that have cache memory. Alrighty, I'm gonna swap out the motherboard for that 3D6SX because we're getting very long with this video here. So we'll out with this potentially flaky one and in with this board. So again, just a close-up look at it. 3D6SX33 chipset, I don't know, can't tell what that is. It's got an AMI BIOS on here. Oh, we'll have to stick some RAM in there. You only need to use 2 at a time because the 386SX is no different than a 286 and it's got a 16-bit data bus. Ruh-roh, we got some corrosion on these pins here. I'm not sure you'll be able to see that there. That's interesting. How is that over here, but not over here? Like there's a battery connector there and it doesn't have any corrosion. I do see some leakage though. So let me cut that battery off this board right this moment. Actually, you know what? Before I cut it, I think the bottom is not eaten away. So I will just desolder it. That's easier. It's actually typically pretty hard to desolder if the corrosion has eaten away on the backside. And what you have to do is cut the battery away, and then once the thermal mass is gone, you can actually get that off. But this one doesn't appear to have any issues on the back here. So we're gonna just get this off of here. Slide this right out, super easy. Look at this, boom, just like that. Popped right out. There is some corrosion there. Hopefully that comes across in the camera, just a little bit. You gotta recycle these, by the way, too. Don't just throw them away, they got toxic chemicals in them. Okay, so let's hook this motherboard up. Even though it's got a little corrosion on the pins here, I don't see any other corrosion, so that's a bit weird, but who knows? I gotta say that these kinds of motherboards are not super common because they really get the corrosion issue, and that eats and destroys a lot of them. Most of them have, you know, I've had some that were so destroyed and kind of beyond repair because the traces inside the layers were damaged and all that. So it's kind of cool that this one seems basically unscathed. I'm gonna put my postcard in here. Now without RAM connected, let's see if we turn this on. Oh yeah, there we go. It's executing postcodes. You don't need RAM to do very minimal testing. Some motherboards you do. All right, well, let's see if we hear a beep. That's what we're looking for with the postcard. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there's there we go. That's normal. There's a speaker on the postcard. That's what I was actually hooking up. And I could just replace this wire if it ever got damaged. That is good. I'm gonna grab some of the memory that was in that box of random memory, and we'll put a couple in here. I put all the RAM back into this big bag here as opposed to that box. So this is like a grab bag of RAM. So let me just grab some 30 pin out of here. See how long it will take me to find 2 matching 30 pins. Let's see if these are all the same. They look similar. 256K, that's 256. This one is, I think this is 4 megabytes, so that's not gonna work. Not with the 256. I think that's another 4 meg one, so maybe we'll try those two. And this is another 256. So 2 of these is 512K, and you can put 2 at a time, remember. So Sim 1, Sim 2, 3, and 4. So why don't we try these 2 modules, which appear to be the same. Yeah, hopefully this socket works. No, darn it. That's annoying. The clip is bent. So like the second slot here, this one will work fine. Oh, you know what? Look, I was just trying to put this memory module in. It's got a bunch of corrosion on it. All right, well, anyways, let's try the second slot. So the second slot works fine. So that goes right in. It's not damaged, but this clip is actually broken. Oh dear. I'm not sure this is actually gonna, it's broken on both sides. Don't think that's gonna come across, but each one of these metal clips has 2 little pieces and both of them are broken off on that first slot. Well, I can at least just hold the module in place. Like, that module does not stay in on its own. What I could probably do is just wedge something in there. Let's just wedge in this these memory sticks. There we go. I think that might do the trick. Let's see what happens when we turn it on. Hey, that's it. That memory's working. Okay, let's plug in the video card. That is hilarious. That is funny. So that's a way to get it to work. If we turn it on, oh, I didn't plug the keyboard in. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, 512K, just like I thought. And let's see what this is all about. Yeah, regular AMI BIOS, nothing special here. Okay, XT IDE is in. Let's power this back up again. Cool. I think this motherboard's probably gonna work just fine. Oh, I don't know if I can run everything with only 512K of RAM. Oh, it's not finding my, you know, I've had this issue before. It didn't find the SD card, this compact flash card, but it's in there. This is like something I've seen before. Certain computers, this card is just not happy. I use this card all the time on everything. I made it myself. I plugged this in backwards into a motherboard like that. It damaged a few chips on there. Let's just try a different slot, I guess. See if that works. I mean, the BIOS was working, right? It showed the XTID BIOS, but it wasn't seeing the compact flash card. There it is, NODisk. Okay, I just pushed on it. I don't know. There we go, booting C. This is gonna be far slower. Let's see, speed 600. Remember we were getting like 3,000 something with this card for the video speed? We're getting even faster, 4,030. Oh, look at this, my RAM is falling out here. It's faster on this machine than it is on the Pentium 3. And I think that's because the Pentium 3 is natively like running a PCI bus and the ISA bus hangs off of the PCI bus. I think that's what's going on with those. And because of that, it can be slower than the ISA bus actually on this machine, which remember, is really like a 286. I wouldn't be surprised if this chipset that's on here, whatever this is, probably can work with the 286 as well. Yeah, so anyways, that's sad that this is busted though. I mean, I suppose I could just 3D print something, a little spacer, because you always have to insert 2 memory modules anyways, and we'll just rely on the other memory module here, this one. The clips here, we'll just have to hold up both of them. It's not ideal, but that's something that could make this thing work for someone. Time to test out the Apple IIe motherboard, so I gotta clear out all this stuff and get that ready. All right, the Apple IIe motherboard. Condition is, well, it's dirty. There's like a, I don't know, was that a spider nest or something like that? Caterpillar nest right there next to the joystick port. Everything else is intact. This thing probably is gonna work. Apple IIe motherboards are very reliable, I've found. Compared to the Apple II Plus, which had tons of TTL logic on it, Apple reduced all of that into these 40-pin ICs here. This is the keyboard controller, which was moved from the keyboard PCB itself right onto the motherboard, just for cost reasons, I guess. Got some ROM chips, character generator ROM. This is the RAM, which is soldered down on the motherboard. That makes troubleshooting, if there is a RAM problem, a little more difficult. The CPU, the expansion slot here is for adding extra 64K of RAM for use with 80 columns and double high res, things like that. And like the Apple Plus, it has an internal joystick connector here. There's a video port. There's a cassette in and out for a cassette drive. And it also has a 9-pin joystick port here for, well, connecting a 9-pin joystick versus the internal connector. Now, this 9-pin joystick is not the same as an Atari or a Commodore 64. This is an analog joystick. It's got the same signals as this internal connector. So you do need to plug in a specific Apple II joystick into there. Power supply connects here. And then we have the expansion slots, and versus the Apple II Plus, it's missing slot 0 because that was used exclusively on the Apple II Plus, well, pretty much for the RAM expansion. And of course, that capability of that RAM expansion card is built right into the motherboard on this machine. It emulates exactly the way the Microsoft and the Apple RAM expansion card worked on the II Plus and on the Apple II. Anyhow, enough talking. I don't have a keyboard handy, so we're just gonna have to see what happens when we power this on. It's gonna go into the diagnostic mode as soon as it powers up. Oh, incidentally, this is a power supply that I have serviced in the past. New X cap in 2021 or 2022, I mean. I don't remember if I made a video about that or not, but anyways, I think I've done an Apple II power supply service video on the channel before. So I'll plug this in. This cable goes to my RetroTink. You can see a little bit of the blue screen right here in the corner. I'll reposition the camera. Let's just make sure this is off. Yes, it is. Let's plug in the power supply. All right, when I power this up, it should go straight into the diagnostic mode, and that's because without a keyboard connected, it thinks you're holding down the 2 Apple keys. It's because those keys are actually wired up to the joystick buttons. That's how they added that functionality to the Apple II. And I think there's a pull-up resistor on those 2 inputs. So to get it to stop going into the diagnostic mode and drop to the Apple prompt, you got to put, I don't know, a resistor to ground, I think. This is out of memory. I don't remember exactly if that's the case. But let's turn this on and see what happens. Okay, we've got the light on. Of course, it says no signal, but that's just, there we go. Okay, so it's running the diagnostic. This is the later version of the IIe. Like I mentioned, it's got the enhanced ROMs and the C version of the processor, which means it has an actual RAM diagnostic. So when this finishes, it should say system OK. Okay, well, it probably said it, and the problem is it just restarts the diagnostic because it thinks we're holding down those keys. I just grabbed a couple 460 ohm resistors. I'm gonna stick them into pins 2 and 3. I'm sorry, the heat just turned on. I just shut that off. And I think if I put it into pin 8, I think pin 8 is the ground pin on this motherboard. Okay, what happens if we turn it on now? Okay, there it is. It jumped right into the Apple IIe, boot screen. What I'm gonna do is pull the ground out, let this boot up into the diagnostic. There it is, and I'm gonna put that in. So that means when the cycle finishes, we should not restart the diagnostic. And basically, if you push those Apple keys after the diagnostic runs, it'll just keep running indefinitely. So hopefully we'll see system OK, which means the 64K. Oh yeah, look, system OK. That means the 64K on the motherboard is working, and I'm gonna wager that this motherboard actually works perfectly. I just wanted to give a close-up view of the joystick port there. So pins 2 and 3 have 2 460 ohm resistors each. I tied them together and I stuck it into pin 8, which is the ground pin, and that prevents the diagnostics from running automatically. So if you're testing one of these motherboards and you want to bypass the diags, that's the trick. So as I said, yeah, this motherboard, I was pretty sure this was gonna work. It didn't have MT RAM. That would have been the only thing that could have stopped it. And that's because typically whoever manufactured Apple's ICs here are just nice, reliable chips. And that's pretty much always what I found with these. Alrighty, that is gonna be it for this test and try video. Now, this little pile of stuff here are the things that I just tested, and yeah, everything worked, except for the fact that this SIM socket was broken on this motherboard, but you know, a little wedge of another stick of memory and made that work. All this stuff is working great. I'd love to hear in the comment section if you enjoyed this kind of video, and then of course, if you saw interesting stuff come by that I unboxed that I didn't look at in further depth on this video, please let me know about that down below. I'll read through the comments, and maybe if there's stuff that people think is extra interesting, then I can make a special video focusing on that. I do intend to make a video talking about these DVD decoder cards. Well, they're all the same, so one of these cards, just because that was a really interesting time period to me. I think these graphics accelerators here had or started to have the capability of doing the MPEG decoding, although I don't know if they did MPEG 2 and maybe they only did MPEG 1. I'm not quite sure about that. I think these ICs here can do hardware decoding of MPEG 2 and hardware decoding of MPEG 1. No encoding or anything like that, just decoding. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it. So yeah, like I said, comment down below, thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks to my patrons, their names are gonna scroll up the side of the screen here. They get early access to videos, stuff like that. And I think that's gonna be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.